Welcome to this CEC Gurukul Lectures viewers. I am Shankar Kumar, and the topic that we shall be talking about in European history today is the rise of absolutist state in France. This I propose to do in two parts because the content is vast and the coverage perhaps cannot be taken care of in one half an hour interaction. So this would be the first part of our interaction on the emergence of absolutist state in France. And in my earlier four interactions, I have spoken to you about the general attributes of an absolutist state, the way it emerged in different parts of Europe around 16th century onwards. We also in our earlier interaction have spoken of the some controversy regarding the timing of this, because generally France is regarded as the classical model of absolutist state, particularly during the period of Louis XIV, who is supposed to have said, "I am the state," and thereby typifying as to what was the level of control of the monarch over the mundane affairs of the state. But there are historians who rather trace the beginning of strengthening of the apparatus of the state, of the secular state over the affairs of people in general, over the affairs of economy, over the affairs of society, much before 16th century as well. So be it the price revolution of 16th century, be it the Reformation movement of 16th century, all these things actually made or created very conducive environment for the assertion of the monarch's power through different ways and means, depending on the local conditions and local situations. So new social entities, new social powerful groups were being created, or they emerged, that could have sustained, that could have given political support to these monarchies in case they wanted to take on the traditional aristocracy over which they had to depend a lot, and if they had to assert more power, they had to be taken on. So all those things went into constituting the matrix within which the absolutist state had to navigate, or they had to transact in order to make themselves more and more assertive and important. So if they wanted to entrench their administrative bureaucracy over the mechanism, the traditional mechanism of nobility's control over their subjects, well, it created some kind of a tense situation, and that could not have been successful on part of the monarchies had they not been having some kind of fallback plan with respect to some social groups who would come to their rescue in terms of supporting them, in terms of sustaining them, in terms of, and that is why the emergence of commercial capitalism in 16th century Europe actually allowed some of the monarchs, particularly in England, to depend on the new source of revenue, which could sustain the coffers of the absolutist monarchies, and they could take on the traditional nobility or aristocracy. And that's the story in different parts of Europe, and we shall see as to what is happening in France in particular. And this particular discussion would be for the period prior to you can say Louis XIV, and when I meet you next, probably I'll try to cover the next part of the situation under which absolutist monarchies emerged in France from Louis XIV's period onwards. So as I said earlier, and you can see on your slide, France is regarded as a classical case of European absolutism. The conventional timeline is 1660 to 1789, as is evidently written over there. Now 1660 to 1789, you can very easily make out, is the period of Louis XIV to the beginning of the French Revolution, when you have beginning of Republican phase of actually France had to undergo several experimentations before it could stabilize as a republic. So First Republic, Second Republic, Third Republic, all across in the last quarter of 18th century and 19th century history is about that. But we are not talking about that at this moment. What I am trying to say here is that traditional historiography tends to accord this timeline of 1660 to 1789 for French absolutism. And as I told you that all historians don't quite agree with it. Some of them argue, and quite convincingly so, that conditions for emergence of absolutist states in Europe had arisen even prior to this. So very well in 16th century you could see some of the monarchies actually trying to assert their power, and that's where the story should begin. And not from Louis XIV as such. But so far as we are talking of France, well, that's the traditional way in which things are looked at. As the next point says, that the origin now is sought to be pushed back to not only 16th century but even 15th century. And we have the famous historian Perry Anderson, who outlines three distinct breakdowns of political order which allowed actually the absolutist monarchies to grow, to centralize more and more power under itself. And those three breakdowns in the history of France were, number one, the 100 Years' War. Now 100 Year Wars, as you can see on your slide, the timeline is 1338 to 1453 broadly, and actually 100 year war was a war with the English feudal lords. But since it was a very intermittent, continuous kind of affair for good 100 years or so, what it did to France is that it allowed them to strengthen their army, and strengthening of army is an important component of any state system. Standing army, well-paid army, well-equipped army is an important apparatus of any state, and that inadvertently got built as a consequence of French participation in the 100 Year War with English feudal lords. So the French army got armed, and as soon as some efforts were made to nationalize its army, actually it became very formidable. So the French monarchical state became formidable with a well-armed force, right? And that happened as a consequence of its participation in 100 Years' War. So these are you can say some of the ways by which absolutist states actually emerged. There is no conscious effort at this point of time during 100 Years' War being made to strengthen French state system, but eventually whenever it was made, these things actually added to it, and it ended up strengthening the French monarchy. Similarly, the religious wars of the 16th century and the Fronde revolts of the 17th century also allowed the central authority of the monarch to somehow intervene in the affairs which otherwise would have been affairs between two religious groups or more religious groups or two feudal groups. So the fact that it was under turmoil, be it religion or be it the feudal polity, the fact that different feudal lords were at odds with each other allowed actually the central authority to intervene and garner more and more power for itself, so far as governance issues are concerned or taxation issues are concerned. So This is just elaboration of what these 3 points are. I have already told you about 100 Years' War being a war against the English feudal lords, and since it was not continuous but very prolonged, it led to, number one, creation of stable and permanent army in France. It also led to elaboration of taxation system. And this is interesting. When you talk of French absolutism, the first thing in terms of taxation that comes to our mind is taille. And taille is something which was a tax which was introduced as late as 1441. And it was not introduced in connection with absolutist monarchies who are trying to assert themselves. Rather, taille was something that was introduced during the 100 Years' War, and it was a temporary wartime measure that was imposed, and the nobility and clergy were exempted from it. So, the entire burden of this extra tax on account of France being in a war situation, and therefore taille was introduced over and above the existing feudal obligations on part of the peasantry. So, the seigneurial relations and several other taxes like gabelle and so forth, which is salt tax, or aids, which is sales tax. So, they had to pay, they had been paying all these things, and over and above that they started, the peasantry started to, or peasantry was expected to pay over and above these taxes the taille, and that was a wartime measure. But when absolutist monarchies emerged, taille became the mainstay of the revenue mechanism of the absolutist monarchies. So, as we discussed, that the burden of this new tax was entirely borne by the peasantry, because nobility and clergy are exempted from it. And that tells you that the French absolutist monarchy was the cost was borne by the peasantry. There is no structural reordering of economy and exploration of new tax avenues that could lessen the burden of the peasantry. Rather, it was imposed over them only. So, the traditional tax paying subjects were loaded with extra burden, and that is how the nature of French absolutism continued to remain feudal in essence, and it couldn't quite breach the structural the structural edifice of a feudal state. So, in ultimate analysis, you can call it a feudal state, although it was now more centralized, and the feudal lords were brought under a fair degree of control by the monarch through several other measures, and that we shall be talking about. Similarly, it also led to establishment of parliament, and this parliament is a French word, and it is different from the English or the British parliament, which was a representative institution. But here in France, parliament was more of a kind of judicial and administrative body, and it was also used at times for consultative works. Different feudal lords would come together, curia regis and so forth, on such occasions, and they would deliberate on common issues, and by and large the nature of participation was urban and not rural, but at times even rural component of parliament becomes evident, but largely it was an urban phenomena, and therefore establishment of parliament is yet another important mechanism that becomes significant when we speak of the French absolutism. And as you can see on your slide, this particular institution, Etat Generaux, as it was called in French, or States Generals in English, is the institution that can closely be identified as a parallel body in France for what we see as parliament in England. So it was a kind of parliament, but as we all know that pre-modern society in Europe was a state society, and it was not premised on citizenship and so forth. So you had by and large three states, the clergy, the nobility, and the common people, or the third state. And this States Generals, or Etat Generaux, also was composed of three houses. So the clergy would deliberate for themselves, the nobility would deliberate for themselves, the third estate would deliberate for themselves. So there is no common meeting ground, and it was very separated kind of thing. Nevertheless, it all came under one institution, and that we know as States Generals. So the fact that it was some kind of a parliamentary deliberative body, very logically you can make out that rise of absolutist states in France meant that these kinds of traditional institutions like States Generals would not have much space to play itself out, and therefore more or almost during the entire absolutist phase of 17th century and 18th century, but for the iconic French Revolution, where this body was reconvened after a good 200 years of almost lying inactive. This was not used much, because this was not the basis of increasing the power and clout of the centralized administration under different monarchs during absolutist phase. So these traditional institutions were not made use of, rather they were deliberately sought to be made obsolete and not of any functional value. Therefore, there is a kind of deliberate ignoring throughout the absolutist phase of such institutions. The monarchs emerged as powerful kings, and they carried out work through a strong bureaucratic system, rather, which was a new creation on their part. So instead of relying on these traditional bodies like Parliament and States General, the kings in France rather preferred to create their own new bureaucratic system manned by people of their choice, or the nobility who actually willingly surrendered their privileges to the king and agreed to act accordingly, and the king in return bestowed some of the privileges to them, allowed them the social prestige and so forth. So it is now happening through bureaucratization. Also you have a new instrument of the state emerging, and that is bureaucracy, through which governance is carried out, and not through the traditional institutions and bodies like States Generals and Parliament. So that tells you about the story of absolutism in France, and but we should pause here and think that we are talking of, say, 16th century, 17th century situation. So when we visualize an absolutist state in France, and more so ever when you think of Louis XIV proclaiming that I am the state, as if it is his command that runs across his domain and so forth, that's not a good visualization to have, because we are talking of the times when any kind of central or assertion of central authority would have met several structural limits so far as its exercise is concerned. Talking about specifically the case of France, we can see that France was a very vast territory. It was almost 3 times that of England. And to think of a centralized governance in 16th and 17th centuries France is a tough proposition. And therefore, it was some kind of, you can say, limit. And you cannot visualize it the way we can visualize a modern nation state in terms of uniformity and in terms of unquestioned exercise of central authority and so forth. The vastness, the sheer territorial vastness of France was one thing to contend with so far as the rise of absolutist monarchies are concerned. Similarly, France was beset with a lot of economic disparity. And when you have a very pronounced economic disparity, one taxation system, one law, which would otherwise be very logical for any absolutist monarch to have, that would not work. And therefore, the economic disparity, the sheer economic disparity of France or French population also ensured that there were severe limits to the actualization of the objectives or realization of things that were sought to be carried out through the bureaucracy of absolutist monarchies. Similarly, the population, if you look at the demography of France in 16th century or 17th century, you again find that the population is high and they are unevenly distributed. So, one size fit all policy or rule or law or taxation or a structure perhaps would not yield results. And therefore, the absolutist monarchies and the absolutist state apparatus had to come to terms with this. And it also created a lot of disturbance for uniform exercise of rule and that uniformity that we otherwise think of in terms of a nation state and so forth. Largely, you discover that the eastern frontier of France was very blurredly defined. So, it was not very clear. So, there was a lot of ambiguity and that had a share of its own problems so far as exercise of absolutist rule is concerned. The communication system was archaic, and that is something that's true for any society. If we talk of 15th century, 16th century or 17th century, so they were not equipped with the kind of modern gadgets and equipments and surveillance apparatus that is available to a modern nation state. So, they had to use the same archaic ancient communication system to exercise their power, and so this is yet another limitation that we are hinting at. 2 languages so far in 16th century or 17th century France, langue d'oil which was prevalent in north and langue d'oc which was prevalent in south. The sheer fact that the royalty was located in northern part of France, therefore, it is the langue d'oil that went on to become or went on to develop as what we understand as modern French. Similarly, French population doubled from 1450 to 1560, and I have already spoken of the uneven demographic distribution, which was a challenge for the exercise of absolutism or absolutist rule in France. Cities like Paris in the north, Lyons in central France, Rouen in western France developed during this period, during absolutist period. Marseilles was a Mediterranean port. Tours was a silk manufacturing sector. Amiens was a cloth manufacturing center. And why I am talking about this is because this offers an alternative for the absolutist monarchy to tax. So, the traditional aristocracy can be dispensed with, and the monarch can rely on the taxation base of these cities and these new occupations to sustain its expenditure, its state expenditure. J.H.M. Salmon tells us that there are important social and economic changes that are important so far as understanding the rise of absolutism is concerned, and it is not always as a consequence of the personal will and whims of a particular monarch like Louis XIV. So, looking at the economic factors and social factors are important. For example, price revolution had meant that the lower gentry was gaining more as compared to the traditional aristocracy, and that meant that it was a very tough time for the feudal aristocracy, particularly the big aristocracy, and hence the big aristocracy, since they were incurring loss, their income was being badly impacted during the price rise in 16th century. So they got inclined towards monarchy, and that meant that there is some kind of a lending of political support to them, and in return the monarch exempts them from tail. And that is how this give and take business happens that I earlier spoke to you about. And they could also buy venal bureaucracy or offices, and thus they could maintain, the traditional aristocracy could maintain social status, but only by forfeiting their traditional taxation rights, and they could they aligned with the existing monarch. So feudalism was retained only in form. The actual relation between aristocracy and the state was that of clientage and not that of feudal obligation. Similarly, the seigneurial institution also didn't perform the same function as before, that of protection and support, because now protection and support is being given by the state, and therefore this is the new feature that we get to see in France as a consequence of emergence of the absolutist states. Massive institutional reforms by Francis I as the ruler also created new bureaucracy with rights of purchasing offices and officials, and this made the aristocracy more dependent on monarchy. So these are the ways and means by which different monarchs and economic situation in France allowed the situation to become such where the traditional aristocracy gravitates towards monarchy, and monarchy becomes viable. Strong monarchies, centralized monarchies become viable. So that's how it all started unfolding in favor of rise of absolutist states in France, and the next part of it I shall be talking to you in some other interaction. Thank you.